Now, first off, before we begin this right here, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to my girl out there in Grafton, Ohio, Lori Nagy, for sending me this awesome shirt. This shirt right here. On the back, you can't see it, but it's the Jailhouse Tavern, and it says I did time at the Jailhouse Tavern. And if you're in the Grafton, Ohio area, please go check out my buddies over there at the Jailhouse Tavern and check it out. Great place to be. A lot of fun people to be around. The environment and the atmosphere is great. Go check it out. The Jailhouse Tavern the next time you're in Grafton, Ohio. Now let's go ahead and get into this one right here. Yo, what's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Prison Break Raw. I'm your host, the one and only Big JD. Go ahead, get this channel, subscribe, share, leave some messages or comments, hit the thumbs up for the like, hit that notification bell to be informed on all episodes when they drop. It would probably surprise you to know that almost anybody who engages in prison politics would actually make a very effective diplomat. In a sense, they're diplomats to a greater or lesser degree, depending on how you look at it, because you have to be diplomatic in all your dealings and how you approach people on the inside, especially in the West Coast, like a California prison, or even in the feds, where it's on a much larger scale as far as prison gangs, racial politics, cars, and all those things are in there. You have to be able to be diplomatic, and you have to know how to work conflict resolution before the shit erupts into a full-scale riot. You have to learn how to communicate. A lot of people in the prison system, and I'll admit, have zero communication skills whatsoever. But there's always that one dude or a small group of cats that are running any car or any prison gang or any prison disruptive group that know how to effectively use diplomacy and communication in dealing with other cars and other races and whatnot in order to resolve an issue before it blows up into something that nobody wants to really see. Nobody really wants to be involved in a prison riot unless, of course, you're a psychopath. I think I've admitted that or said that before. If you're a psychopath, then you live each and every day for the next riot to pop off. But those kind of people are very, very, very few and in between. Nobody wants the natural order or the order of things to be interrupted under any circumstances, because that's really all you got. You got nothing else except for that. So I honestly believe that anybody who was like a llavero, anybody who was a blaquero, anybody who was a shot caller in prison would make a very effective diplomat in the government. I mean, think about it, right? You're dealing with some of the most difficult personalities that you can ever come across. Some of the most difficult personalities. Now, you're dealing with people that got not a lick of sense. You're dealing with people that got somewhat of a sense of things. And you got other people that all they want to do is just do their time and function and keep their car, the fabric of their car, in one piece and not wreck into anything, into no brick wall. Especially if it's a group that's much larger, more disciplined, and more structured than you are. You do not want to send your car down that road. You do not want to explore the many possibilities of pain, suffering, and struggle that you will have to go through. It's best just to resolve the issue. Now, issues like this happen in prisons all the time. Even though, like, let's say, for example, in a California prison, it's pretty much well known that you stick with your own people, whatever your people may be. You're a gang member, you go with those fools over there. You're whatever your race is, you're a paisa, you're a wood, you're just a regular black that ain't blood or crip or anything up north. You're a norteño, you're a sureño, you're whatever you are, you stick with that. That's what you stick with. But because you are in a small area that's fenced off, interactions with other groups and other races is inevitable. It's just going to happen. Doesn't matter where it is. It could be happening in vocation. It could be happening in your job assignment, even on the yard or in anything that you do in any way, shape, or form. you're going to bump into somebody else, and sometimes bumping into somebody else may not be the greatest thing in the world. So what happens in a situation where, let's say, for example, one of the homies of Sureño gets into it with a Crip? If they don't get off right then and there, if it's something that, like I like to say, maybe like a soft kind of a confrontation, a soft confrontation will be anything and everything that may be like a disagreement. Maybe, somebody grabbed something or cut in front of somebody in a line, grabbed something, like I said, that didn't belong to them. Anything and everything, might have said something that was an earshot of the homie and the homie heard it. Might have said something to him. There may have been some heated words without disrespect, without anybody disrespecting anybody or calling anybody out. It may have been to something to where it temporarily dissolved or ended right then and there, but one of the two parties felt some kind of way about it later. So what happens in a situation like that? This is most of the time why a lot of these riots will pop off. If it's a race riot like that, what will happen is the individual who feels some kind of way about it will go back and he'll get with his people. Be like, you know what? I had some words with this cat in here over this. Let's say they're in education. I had a whole ream of paper. I was going to take it back, but this cat snatched it up before I can get it, because technically he might have had it stashed somewhere. Dude didn't even know, probably had no idea that it belonged to him. He snatched it up and grabbed it and started pulling it out and taking it and giving it to his peeps. And he went and confronted him on it. And next thing you know, there was some words exchanged to the way of like, well, you should have put your name on it. You should have did this, you should have done that, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what I mean? Well, I'm not giving it back. Okay. Now, if the dude doesn't necessarily have to take flight right then and there, unless, of course, he was disrespected or the fool stepped up and said, how you want to handle this? You want to catch this fade? Well, what's up? If a case like that happens, then he better get off right then and there. And in that case, there is really no diplomacy. The rules of engagement have been broken, and it's on at that point in time. But there's always those times where the parties will separate and they'll go back and talk to their people about it. The one guy that was approached may go back and say, hey, man, we might be hearing from these cats, stay on your toes. And the other one that felt some kind of way about it is going to get with his people. The first thing that's going to be asked, were you disrespected in any way, shape, or form? Now, this is not so that they can all jump up and rush the other fools. But if you're coming back and you're telling your shot caller, your llavero or whatever, the situation that happened, or maybe just a homie that you confide a lot of this stuff in, he's gonna ask you if has any kind of common sense, any kind of a gangster or convict at all. He's gonna ask you straight from the rip, were you disrespected in any way, shape, or form? And when I mean, were you disrespected, did he call you outside your name? Did he step up and say, well, what's up, man? You want to handle this business? Did anything like that happen? And if that man says yes, well, guess what? Nothing's going to happen with these other fools. Something's going to happen to him because he didn't stand his ground. He didn't do what he was supposed to do and take flight. It happens like that. That's what's going to happen to that individual right there. So, if he comes back and he says, nah, he didn't disrespect me or nothing, he didn't do anything, I tried to explain to him that what he had got, that's what I was trying to come up on, and he wasn't trying to hear it or anything like that, and he took off. So how do you feel about it? Well, how do you feel you want to handle it? Well, I feel like I want to get mine. All right, well, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find out and see if we can get that back. And if we can't get that back, how we can resolve it. But you'd have to be able to basically prove that was yours and it wasn't just free game. Because a lot of stuff in education, stuff that we come up on, contraband type shit, it's free game unless, of course, you have already staked a claim on it. You're already in the works of trying to get it. Maybe there's 2 or 3 other homies that know this for a fact and they ain't gonna lie for you. Know this right now. Unless it's your good homie who's from your neighborhood or whatever like that, most of the time, they are not going to lie for you. I've learned this myself. They will not lie for you. But now if another homie steps up and says, hey, you know what? Yeah, he was trying to get at that. Or it might be even another race. that says, you know what, and they ask him, well, you know what, ask the wood, he's seen it, or ask the other. And if they're willing to say, yeah, you know what, he had claim on that first, then you got some grounds right there. They're gonna go and they're gonna try to resolve the issue before it erupts into something that probably nobody wants to see over a ream of paper. Shit happens over paper, over boots, over dry cleaning, over smuggling out food out of the kitchen. It happens all the time. There's another perfect example of how shit always pops off is the food in the kitchen, man. Big money on the yard. You can get out 2 or 3 sacks out there. You're either eating good for that night because you're going to mix it with the spread, or you're going to slang that shit out. So let's say, for example, you have a whole bunch of leftover pieces of chicken. You've already put them somewhere to where you're going to take them. This is almost like common knowledge, because if it's in an area that they weren't normally supposed to be in and somebody else finds them, your common sense kicks in right off the rip, and you know, look, somebody put that there for a reason. It belongs to somebody else. Somebody else has already got it. But not everybody's that smart. So somebody might say, well, fuck him. You know what I mean? Should have kept a better eye on him. They start scooping him in to a bag or whatever, and the guy that originally put him there shows up and's like, well, what's up? What are you doing, man? That's mine. It's like, well, you know what I mean? You didn't put your name on it, or you didn't do that, or I didn't know. Nobody told me. They're mine now because my hands are all over them. They're mine now. Again, a situation where the man might go back and talk to his people and say, this fool just jacked my shit. Even a jailhouse thief situation, or if you think somebody might have stole somebody cut in line, somebody bumped into you. A lot of times it's a good rule of thumb to basically go back to your peeps and say, hey, this fool just bumped into me, whatever. You can resolve this without it turning into a huge issue. It happens all the time. Sometimes the shit gets resolved, sometimes it don't get resolved. And when it doesn't get resolved, go ahead and refer back to the other video I did on what does it feel like to be in a prison riot. And that right there will show you what happens when conflict resolution completely breaks down and there's no talks and everybody gets up from the table. And at that moment in time, it is war. War is on at that moment. But the moral of this story is this. Conflict resolution and interacting with people and being diplomatic is something that is an integral part of doing time in a politically run environment, like a California prison or in the feds, where you ain't getting away from the politics. And I don't care if you say, well, my state don't have any politics. Well, guess what? Your state may not have politics, but if you're going into the federal prison system, let's say, for example, you touch down at a USP. Let's say you touch down in USP Big Sandy. Let's say that you touch down in USP Florence, USP Victorville. Your state don't have politics. Guess what? Congratulations. You are now part of the politics of prison. You ain't getting away with it. You ain't running your own thing. You ain't doing your own thing. You will know where you can sit. You'll know who's who and what's what. And you'll know what you could do and where you can go at all times. You won't be able to get away from it. You ain't running your own program under that system. Because you have the entire country in there with you from all their different state systems. Some of their systems may have politics. The other ones may not. But you're stuck in there with all of them. So you better learn how to become a fucking diplomat real fast. You better learn how to use your conflict resolution skills. You better be assertive in your communication. Learn how to effectively communicate with others and resolve issues. Keep your hands off other people's shit. Always know your surroundings and always know what's what at all times. That's key. That's key in avoiding any kind of a conflict. So I honestly believe that you could take any person that has to deal with this on a daily basis in prison, dealing with all the fucking worst kind of personalities you can imagine. You can imagine in a prison, any kind of a prison, you have hundreds of Vladimir Putins, you have all kinds of Bin Ladens, you have all kinds of Donald Trumps, you have Adolf Hitlers, you have Joseph Stalin in there, you have Fidel Castro in there, you have fucking Chapo Guzman, you have all them kind of types of people. What better person to be a diplomat or a State Department official than somebody that's actually been in prison and dealt with the worst kind of personalities that you could possibly imagine? You learn a great deal of communication skills while you're in there if you've always been a part of that, or if you've always taken strides towards being more effective in your communication. It took me years to develop my communication. And what I do is I'm able to change like a chameleon from one communication style to the next, because I've always had to figure out real fast what works for this and what don't work for that. The best way to make your point is to know what triggers you can pull on people and what triggers you can't, what buttons to push, what buttons you shouldn't be pushing. This is conflict resolution diplomacy 101 for the prison system right here. Always try to resolve that shit, but if it don't resolve and everything breaks down, you know that it is on. And you'll know when that shit's coming and you'll be ready. Once again, refer back to the last video I did on what does it feel like to be in a prison riot, and that'll give you an example of what happens when communication all completely breaks down. So you heard it right here, straight from the OG's mouth. Prison Diplomacy 101. And that's what it is. Prison Break Raw, uncut, uncensored, no holds barred, non-sugarcoat, non-politically correct, all up in your face, slapping you with that dick of reality. And I'm out.